easy sell?
Well, I would say it was more of an idea that he let us know that he and Rob were very close. They had a great relationship, and, there's no really selling Rob Gronkowski, who's one of the best tight ends to ever play the game, on a general manager or head coach. But he did let Bruce and I know that Rob was very interested, if he ever came out of retirement, he would want to play with the Buccaneers and with him and for Bruce. So it was a pretty easy sell. When we had the opportunity to get him, we were very excited.
Okay, and our next question is from Adrian Jones, who asked, what work are we doing to shore up the running back position?
Well, first of all, I would say that we're very excited about the running backs that we currently had before the draft. We think Ronald Jones has made tremendous strides last year, and we feel like he's going to take another step this year or two to be the back that we all know that he's capable of being, which he showed last year towards the end of the season. We plan on Rojo continuing his role of being a big playmaker for us. But we drafted Keyshawn Vaughn in the third round from Vandy, a guy that we really all liked, who's got a 3-down skill set. And we also drafted Raymond Calais in the 7th round, who's a speed guy that reminded us a lot of like a Matt Breida type, who has tremendous speed. He can help in the return game. He is a very good receiver. Wasn't used exclusively as a receiver there much, but he has awesome speed and is going to factor into this too, along with, Dari and TJ. And we're very excited about the overall group right now. I think we've addressed it. We're always looking for more players as the offseason continues and during the season. But we feel like we set our goal to improve that room, and we did it.
Absolutely. All right, next one is from James Farrell. He said, when did you know that you wanted to get Tom Brady?
That's a very good question, James. After the season ended, they were to be available in unrestricted free agency, which ones we felt like could improve our team. We never eliminated Jameis from that discussion, but Tom Brady was at number one of our wish list, but yet we had no idea that at that point in January, if come March, he was A, going to leave the Patriots, and B, if he would want to be a Buccaneer. We felt like he should want to be a Buccaneer. And then when the time came that we were finally able to talk with Tom during free agency, when the bell rang, we found out that he did, in fact, want to be a Buccaneer. So I would say it was back early. It was more of a wish, and then it came to fruition.
Okay, and our next one is from John Price. And he said, with Chris Godwin's contract expiring next year, has there been any talks regarding an extension yet?
Well, first of all, we love Chris. Everybody and anybody in the organization can tell you that we feel Chris is a huge piece of this team and an impact player at the position. I've personally told Chris that we want him to be be here long-term and be a Buccaneer for life. As in terms of when that happens, I can't tell you right now when those talks will officially begin, but I do know that he is in our plans for the long term.
Absolutely. And Lenny Martinez wants to know, we have done an amazing job on the offensive side of the ball. What are we doing with the defensive side for this next year?
Well, that's the defensive side doesn't get as much pub as the offensive side, but it should. I feel like we have one of the best front sevens in the NFL in terms of our defensive line and our linebacker crew. I would put it up against anybody else's front seven with JPP and Shaq, getting him on the franchise, re-signing JPP, re-signing Ndamukong, and then Vita Vea, of course, and Will Golston. And then Levante and Devin, two of the better players inside linebacker in the league. Then you have our three young corners who really played well as the second half of the season and came together. And we added Antoine Winfield to go along with Mike Edwards. We have Justin Evans. We have Jordan Whitehead. Right now we have a very young secondary that's very, very good and hasn't even reached their potential yet, which is very exciting for us. So overall, that defensive side of the ball, addressing the safety in the draft this year and re-signing our players, we feel very, very good about our defense and feel like we could have a top defense in the NFL.
Absolutely, and it actually works out well. That flows pretty well into this next question. Paul Body wanted to know, how would you describe the growth in the secondary this offseason?
We made tremendous strides under Todd Bowles and the rest of the staff on the defense in that second half of the season. We have Shaq Barrett led the league in sacks. JPP came back from his injury and was a huge impact for us. I've mentioned all the players up front that we love, but that secondary, in terms of where they started and where they finished, it was huge. And I think we're going to be able to pick up where we left off last year. And I felt like Todd and his staff did an amazing job with those young guys.
And Victor Tamburo wanted to know, what is your favorite interaction you have ever had with a player?
Wow, that's a very good question. I've been fortunate to be around some great players in my career and great players and people here at the Bucs. We have a fantastic locker room. I have interactions every day when we're in the building and all the players are there. I would have to say though the moment that we talked to Tom Brady and he told us that he wanted to come here, not just because it's getting Tom Brady, but also a reflection of the team that we have and that he was excited to come play with. It made us all feel very good about what we've been doing here and what we've been building. So I would probably have to put that at the top of the list.
That's awesome. I love that. All right. Joshua Maskell said, Jason, thanks for taking the time for this. With two of the biggest names in NFL stardom now on the roster in Brady and Gronk, does this feel like an all-in moment for you and the team?
You know what? It definitely feels like, hey, we mean business, and we're out to do big things this year and improve from last year. In terms of all in, I don't want to say all in at this point yet because we still have some time to do some other things before the season starts. Sometimes your needs in May are completely different than your needs in September. So I wouldn't say our roster is a finished product. I'm not saying we're going to make any big splashy signings. We've done a pretty good job of doing that so far. But, I do know that there's high expectations, and Bruce embraces high expectations, and so do our players on our roster. So all in, well, I think every year we're going to say we're all in, but this year feels a little extra special.
Absolutely. Anthony Miller says, how do you feel about landing the Gronk and the GOAT inside of 2 months, of just how quickly that all happened?
I guess I could, it feels damn good. It feels great. It feels, once again, I'll kind of go back to the fact that these two guys want to come here and play for this coach and play with these guys that are on our team. It feels very good. It feels very good for all of us, the coaches, the scouts, the entire organization, that two players of their caliber are excited to be here.
And Joshua Ortega said, how excited or nervous were you when the draft picks were falling the way they were during the first round? Well,
when there were a few offensive tackles that we had very high grades on, and that we felt would be able to come in this year and at some point make an impact for a rookie as a rookie goes and help us long term as well. So when two went in the top 10 and there were two left, I was excited about the opportunity that one of them may actually be there for us. Then I got a little nervous when they started coming off again. But then when we had the opportunity to go up and secure Tristan, I was excited again. So I would say it's a roller coaster of emotions, but at the end of the day, we were elated that we got Tristan, and it was a process that you go through as a general manager, as a head coach. you don't always get what you want, but in this case, we did.
And Michael Pasternak wanted to know, what was your thought process overall when addressing this year's draft?
This year's draft felt different in regards to it really stacked up well with the needs of our team. We wanted to address offensive line. We wanted to address running back. We wanted to address safety. And those positions, there happened to be some very good players, and it was stacked pretty well for the needs that we needed. And we just needed to make sure that we didn't stack our board and push up guys where you could make a mistake and out of desperation, and we didn't feel like we had to do that. So we got the players that we wanted, players that we felt were good fits for us, and players that we feel are going to make really strong contributions. So we were going into this process, made during the several meetings that we had virtually, we made several comments about how this draft played out well, could potentially play out well for us.
All right. Terry Phillips said, as a lifelong Tampa Bay fan and military veteran living in North Carolina, we have felt the excitement and will be first-time season ticket holders. My question is, what is the most challenging aspect of being an NFL general manager?
Well, Terry, first of all, thanks for being a fan. Thanks for jumping on board, and we thank you for your service. The most challenging aspect of being a general manager is balancing what we need now and then without sacrificing what we're going to be doing in the future. So you got to play a little bit both games. Of course, we want to win this season and build the roster to compete for a championship next year. But we also want, the future years, we don't want to be decimated, whether it's through salary cap or players retiring or what have you. We want to make sure that we keep the cupboard stocked for the future. So that's probably the most challenging thing, maneuvering through the salary cap, those types of things.
Mark Anderson wanted to know, do you think you will be able to lock up Chris Godwin and Shaq Barrett to long-term contracts considering the salary cap situation?
We would definitely love to. That would be something that we would really like to do, and that's something that we're going to definitely try to do. So we have some time here to do it, but it would definitely be something that would be ideal.
Yeah, for sure. Michael Romano said, can you share the moment when you realized landing Tom Brady was a real possibility, and then similarly the same moment when Gronk became a possibility, and what were your thoughts in those moments?
In terms of Tom, it was when free agency dinner bell rang and we were able to talk to him, and BA and I had a conversation with him. I spoke with him for 30, 45 minutes, and BA total of about 90 minutes separately. And we kind of looked at each other when Tom was telling us how excited he was going to be playing in Tampa with Mike, Chris, the whole gang on defense. And for Bruce and his staff, that was the moment when it wasn't, we weren't necessarily pitching to him why he should come here, when he was telling us how excited he was going to be here because of the things that we were actually going to pitch to him. I would say that was the moment we knew, and excited is probably an understatement at that point. In terms of Rob, when I started talking with New England on the trade, which those conversations lasted for a good, 3 weeks, maybe longer. But when we finally came to terms with what we were going to do, and then that was the moment that I knew that this was actually happening, it was the same thing. Just very excited to bring in a guy that's an unbelievable teammate that has unbelievable competitiveness and toughness, and is, excited to come in and work with his new teammates. And Rob, one thing, the recurring theme, and I've been around him a little bit when I was in New England. I was there when Bill drafted him and all that, and for a couple of years. But he is a phenomenal teammate. We all know that Tom, you've heard the stories about what a great teammate he is, but Rob is the same thing.
And Rick Gentile wanted to know, why did you give up your fourth-round pick to move up from 14 to 13? And how sure were you that someone was to be able to get your first-rounder? If you had been able to stay at 14, would you potentially have still been able to get him?
Well, that's a gamble that you take, and we did know that there were several teams that were trying to get into that spot, and we felt like there were a few teams that were trying to get up into that spot to get Tristan, and we know that Joe Staley is retired, and we had heard some whispers prior to the draft that might happen, so that was also a possibility, but it was more so worried about the other teams coming up. And I just had to ask myself, how good would I feel that night on Thursday and waking up in the morning if I knew that if I didn't get Tristan and I knew that all I had to do was give a fourth-round pick, which is a very valuable pick, but if that's all it was going to take to secure Tristan, how would I feel? And the answer would be I'd feel very bad. So at the end of the day, we're happy. And we're happy. The value of a fourth-round pick sometimes is more valuable in using to move up or to secure players like Rob than the actual pick itself at times. But in this case, we felt like it was what we needed to do, and right now we feel great about it.
And Jason Bunch asked, aside from not being in the same room for the draft, were there any complexities to this year's draft that proved especially difficult, or was it relatively easy given the phone and internet communication channels being open?
Well, being fully transparent, leading up to the draft, I was very worried. Back up 2 weeks before, I was a little concerned how this was all going to work virtually. Being able to talk to my staff, being able to talk to his staff, BA and I being able to talk together. The phone's ringing. I'm used to having the phones ringing behind me and having Rob McCartney and John Spytek and Mike Beal and Mike Greenberg taking a lot of those calls and presenting me the offers that we're getting to move up or move down. So I didn't know how it was going to work. So the week leading into the draft, we held mock drafts with a few other teams that we're close with and doing different scenarios, moving up, trading back. We spent several hours doing that. Then we spent several hours doing it amongst ourselves. And Spencer Dill, our IT guy, who I feel is one of the best in the league, if not the best, he's definitely one of the best I've ever been around, was able to connect us virtually through several platforms where I felt like I was at the draft table. So there were complexities, but it was seamless the way it worked out in this situation. It couldn't have gone any better, and it was also a lot of fun to spend the weekend with my family just in the next room. So overall, I couldn't be happier with the way it went.
That's awesome. And Bruce Ogilvie wanted to know, what was the most difficult thing that you had to overcome not being able to have individual workouts and meetings after the combine with your prospects?
Well, the individual workouts, it was challenging. Fortunately, it was an even playing field with the rest of the league. There were a lot of players we didn't have speeds on. We didn't have, full testing numbers on. But this draft will, I guess, show which teams are the best evaluators, because I always say 90% of it is what you see on the tape and how they perform. We were able to get a lot of our players that we were evaluating to send us virtual workouts, and those did prove to be very valuable with all the players that we drafted. And we spent our scouts, led by John and Mike Beal, did a tremendous job with the coaches, who did a phenomenal job spending hours upon hours of meeting with these guys through Zoom, through WebEx, through FaceTime. So we probably talked to more players face-to-face, quote unquote, over the screen than we have in the past, just because there was nothing else going on during this time. There was no OTAs to prepare for and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of time was spent talking to a lot of players, and it was very valuable.
And Christopher Hatton said, are there any plans to bring in kicking competition for Matt Gay, maybe even Stephen Gostkowski, to continue the raid on New England?
we're continuing to monitor that, and there will be competition for Matt. We feel Matt's going to be better this year. We feel Matt still has a big upside, but we're definitely planning on having competition. When we address that, I can't tell you right now. It's a little bit complex without being able to just, bring in guys for workouts and physicals, which are going to be very important, especially at that position. But we do plan to address that, bringing in another kicker to have strong competition for Matt.
James Blake said, how do you feel about the protection we're able to supply Brady? And do you think that we have the depth on the O-line to get us where we need to be and to keep Brady healthy?
Yeah, we like our offensive line. We especially with the addition of Tristan, we think we have a very good interior. Alex Kappa played with an injury all last year and played very well, considering it was his second year, and he had a fracture in his forearm that he played through for most of the year. He's a very tough guy. Ryan Jensen's coming off one of his best years, and Ali Marpet is a very good player. We think Donovan had his best year. He's been here with the Bucs. He continues to get better and better. And we had some players last year, like Zach Bailey, for one, that we feel has a big upside. And Joe Haig, we felt like we could have gone into the season. We could go into the season with Joe Haig starting somewhere along the offensive line, and we could still be very, very productive. He's a very good player, very versatile player. So we feel like we have some depth right now, some very good depth.
Jeff Thompson said, tell me about how you grade the college players and what attributes they are graded on.
Well, with any position, there are certain factors, major factors that we grade, whether it's their athletic ability, their strength, explosion, competitiveness, toughness, their ability to learn, and their character. But then with each position, there are specific skills that we grade. With take receiver for example, we want to know we give them a grade in terms of how much of a playmaker they are, their catching skills, how they get open, their playing speed, their dependability, and their instincts. But then you get even more specific with their release, their quickness, their route running, their run after catch, their ability to block. And we basically, just to kind of dumb it down, give it a number 1 to 10, and 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And we have a word describing each of those numbers from poor to elite. So when you factor it all in, it's not as simple as just having a computer just spit out a number, but because some of these factors are more important than others. But at the end of the day, you feel good about a player, you feel good about how the plays that he makes on the field, and then you stack the board accordingly.
Spencer Whitaker said, what is the status for Justin Evans health-wise going into this season?
Justin's rehabbing right now. The reports are positive that he's getting better and better, and we hope that he's ready to go in training camp. And if he is, we're going to have a great competition there at safety, and we're going to have some great depth. Could go from a position that was perceived as something that we really, really needed to address that may have been a weakness. In my mind, I think it could become a big strength of our team.
And Matt Wolf said, what is the most valuable leadership principle a coach and player would need to succeed as a leader operating at this level?
Coach and a player?
Yeah, I think both are either. I
think you need to have some humility. You have to have a sense of humor, for sure, to get by in this business, because everybody that's, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to receive a lot of criticism, a lot of it justified, but you have to let it roll off, and you got to keep plugging away. I think as a leader, and I feel Bruce is big on this, and all the great coaches that I've been around and general managers is, you got to make sure that you give credit where credit's due, and then you got to be able to take the shots and the arrows when things aren't going well. So it's, you really have to trust your staff, and you have to have some humility and realize you're only as good as your staff. And we happen to have great staff on both the coaching and scouting side.
Donnie Villanova asked, what is your favorite part of being the general manager of the Buccaneers?
Well, the favorite part will be winning a Super Bowl. and Super Bowls plural. But a favorite part is just being around the players, the coaches, the scouts every day. We're grinding through this together, and just the camaraderie that you form and the bonds that you form with all of the people in the building, whether it's, the scouts and players and coaches, but also the business side, because we all have one goal, and doing this together you become an even closer bond. But just the relationships, I would say, is one of the things that I like the most, besides winning, of course.
And we'll close with this one. Brent Mulberry asked, in your entire time as a GM, what has been your favorite draft trade that you pulled off?
Well, when we drafted Vita, we had Vita targeted as a player that we wanted there in that draft. And when we were able to move back and pick up the extra picks, which enabled us to get Carlton, and then indirectly allowed us to get Alex Kappa. So getting Vita, Carlton, and Alex Kappa in that draft, we felt very, very good about. We got a lot of value out of that trade. But I think, for the rest of my career, I'll never forget slightly moving up from the third round up into the late second by just flopping fourth-round picks with the team to get Ali Marpet, and he was the first D3 player ever selected in the second round. I feel like we feel very good about that one, and very proud about having the faith in Ali, and he's proven to be the player that we felt like he could become.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us today, and congratulations on another awesome draft. And to all of our crew members here on the call, again, thank you so much for your support. We're so glad you are part of the crew, and we hope to be seeing everyone very soon. And go Bucs.
Thanks, guys.